Welcome! Today we are starting up another project for the Odroid H3 Plus. For this project we're going to take an Odroid H3 Plus and add two 16GB memory cards and fit it in a prototype frame using MakerBeam aluminium struts. Normally I would fit an SSD into the M2 NVMe slot on the underneath of the board. However, today we're going to fit the SSD to one of the SATA ports, as I have plans to use the M2 slot for a graphics card. So here we see the Odroid fitted with the 2.5-inch SSD and with Windows 11 installed upon it. I have expanded the frame slightly to accommodate a cooling fan above the processor. This will allow us to mount the unit either horizontally or vertically. The cables I'm using to connect the motherboard to our SSD are obtained from Odroid themselves. A short power cable going into the power socket on the main board and a standard data cable will do quite nicely. So what we're going to do to this Odroid is we're going to add a graphics card. Now the Odroid itself has nowhere into which you can actually plug a graphics card directly. There is no PCI Express socket. So what we're going to be using is we're going to be using the M2 SSD socket on the base of the motherboard. The Odroid itself uses integrated graphics. The integrated graphics are quite adequate for looking at things like YouTube, Amazon Prime, Netflix and so on. However, if you want to do some serious gaming on this, you'd really need to add a graphics card. So this is a graphics card we're going to be adding. We're going to be adding an AMD Radeon RX6600. Now, there are two main problems in adding this graphics card. One, there is nowhere to plug it in. Secondly, the power requirements of this graphics card are greater than the Odroid motherboard can supply via its M2 slot. So we're going to need an external power supply as well. So how can we connect a graphics card, first of all, with the motherboard? We're going to be using one of these. This will allow us to plug in a full-size graphics card into our Odroid. And this end of the cable is what we'll be plugging in to the M2 slot underneath the motherboard. So as you will see, this board has edge connectors. These are to allow your full 24-pin and smaller connectors to connect from your power supply to this board. And there is even a GPU power output socket. The board also comes equipped with appropriate cables. Also provided are two of these. These will screw into the base board and allow you to mount your graphics card quite securely. So now that we have a method of actually connecting the graphics card via the M2 slot to the Odroid, how are we going to power this? The specifications of the graphics card indicate that a 500 watt power supply is recommended. This would be for the entire system. The power supply we have for the Odroid is enough for running the Odroid board itself, but we'll need an additional power supply to plug directly into this. So this is where we're going to make use of an HDPlex 500 watt power supply. This unit should be quite adequate for powering our graphics card. So we have all the components we need for this project. We have a power supply for the graphics card, we have the graphics card itself, we have the Odroid, and we have the interface board to allow us to connect them all up. So what we'll be covering in the next video is the expansion of this MakerBeam frame. This will allow us to bolt the interface board into the side of the frame and allow the M2 slot to be occupied with the interface cable. We can then mount our graphics card to that board. Then the next task will be to position the power supply. I'm thinking the power supply should be able to go quite easily at the back. But with all these projects, the prototype frame may change several times during the length of the project. But that's it for today. Thank you for watching.